My dear friends, and I greet in a very special way the three bishops who are accompanying us. You know them? Yes. You could name them. Archbishop Gabriele Caccia. He is the representative of the Holy See to the United Nations here in New York. Greetings and welcome. Bishop Lynch, here, you know this, the gentleman at the bottom. You know him, do you? He's the Bishop Emeritus of St. Petersburg, not in Russia. And Bishop Barres, a neighbor. Bishop Barres is the Bishop of Rockville Center. You know where it is, Rockville Center? Nobody knows where it is. It's part of the territory. And of course, I greet all the priests here present. I will not name them because I could make quite a number of mistakes. But greetings, priests. So I would like also to read to you a message sent by Cardinal Parolin in the name of the Secretary of State, in the name of the Holy Father, and which is addressed to Maurizio Maniscalco. Where is Mauricio? Here. Oh, well. Why are you so back? Come here. So, Mr. Mauricio Maniscalco, the New York Encounter, in view of so I read you the text of the message of Cardinal Parolin. His Holiness Pope Francis sends cordial greetings and good wishes to all gathered for the annual New York Encounter promoted by Communion and Liberation. He trusts that these days of reflection will nourish participants that innate thirst for the truth which can inspire an authentic existence and a culture of encounter in the service of justice, solidarity, and peace in our communities and throughout the human family. With the assurance of his closeness, in prayer, the Holy Father invokes upon those taking part in the event God's abundant blessings. And this is signed Cardinal Pietro Parolin, Secretary of State. So now I greet you myself, And of course I thank Mauricio Maniscalco and Olivier Danese for their kind invitation to be with you. I'm very happy to be. It's a privilege for me, and it's good for us to encounter one another in person to remember Father Luigi Giussani, not only as the 17th anniversary of death approaches, but also as we celebrate this year the centenary of his birth. Today, in the Gospel, we have a part of St. Luke's Gospel which corresponds to St. Matthew's Sermon on the Mount. Here we are presented with some of the most difficult teachings of Christ, or rather expectations that Christ has for his disciples. Love your enemies. Do good to those who hurt you. Turn the other cheek. Lend without any expectation of repayment. Stop judging. Stop condemning. And the list is quite long, you know that. Although the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, seems reasonable, the others are quite challenging. Yet they can be lived by someone who has encountered Jesus Christ and who has faith in Christ. What is faith? As Giussani said to university students at the Spiritual Exercises for Communion and Liberation University students in 1976, long time ago, and as you heard during last year's beginning day, I quote, "Self-awareness is faith. Faith is recognizing his presence. This is faith. And this is self-awareness, the awareness of myself. The more I resurrect in every hour throughout my day, the awareness of this presence who makes everything, the more I return to the awareness of your presence, O Christ, the more powerful my identity will be, the deeper my tenderness toward myself and your mercy toward me will be, and the more powerful my creativity in relationship with others will be." I heard that Cardinal Dolan saying that when you quote Giussani, you need to open your mind. It's a bit complicated at times. But you know that, and you are professional about that. Huh? Each of us first heard the call to be a disciple of Christ. I think it's good to remember that all the time, the call. We were attracted by his original presence. His words resonated with the desire of our hearts and by the power of his Spirit, the two realities. He drew us into a companionship of believers. Nevertheless, to live his difficult words and expectations, to express our faith in him, we need to constantly be aware of his presence. From the original call to follow him, we need to mature, and to mature, we need to recognize a master, a teacher. While Christ is, of course, the teacher par excellence, many of you came to know Christ through Father Giussani and through those who learned from him. When Father Giussani first began to teach at Birches School, he pointed out to his students that Christ was and is the central point of life. He was not only the central point of prayers in the church, but the central point of life. And what does life mean? Everything. Christ is the central point of everything. For example, Christ is the root of a new vision of oneself and of the world. So, he is the root of a new culture. To say that Christ is a central point of life is to say that he frees life. It means that he allows life to be life. It is this new vision of self and of the world that Christ offers. His expectations are novel. They bring a newness to our world, and they help to build a culture of encounter, a key theme, a key word of Father Giussani's thought. I've quoted to you before the line from Deus Caritas Est of Benedict XVI. You heard me many times, and I will repeat it again. I'm sorry for that. Which Pope Francis, of course, never ceases to repeat. You know it. We could sing it together. You know it? You don't? You imagine what will be the sentence? Being a Christian is not the result of an ethical choice or a lofty idea, but is a result of an encounter with an event and a person who opens up new horizons and gives our life a decisive direction. If you understand that, you have understood everything. I could stop here. It seems to me that this is part of the task and charism of communion and liberation in the United States. To build a culture of an encounter with Christ and his church. Christ is everything, but he is not simply an idea. He shows himself through the experience of an encounter with the church that is present in my life. And not only in my life, but in the companionship of believers. Thus, Father Giussani could say, you cannot follow Christ, you cannot understand Christ, and be true to Christ if not together. The idea had not yet come clear that we are one thing because we are the same thing interiorly, that because of baptism from within, we are no longer strangers. The church means an openness, a oneness of persons. The church means the unity of people. Christ, after all, asked two companions. You know the story also, but it's good to repeat it because this is the beginning. Andrew and John. What are you looking for? He invited them together to come and see. Andrew, in turn, invited his brother, Simon Peter, to follow the Messiah. And so this companionship was born and continues even to this day. Jesus opened their eyes to a new reality, a new way of looking at the world, one that is transformative. Unfortunately, modern man finds himself trapped within himself, unable to escape himself or the ideologies that surround him. Our world suffers from fragmentation and polarization, and this is making it increasingly difficult to transmit the faith and to transform the culture with the values of today's gospel. If we reflect on the first reading of today, we might ask ourselves whether, if we were in the position of David, whether we would seek revenge on Saul, who had harmed us, or whether we would show mercy. Pope Francis reminds us that mercy cannot be a parenthesis in the life of the Church. He invites us to be part of the revolution of tenderness. But this means having a change of mind and heart. This type of conversion, of course, begins with ourselves, but must also be transmitted to others. The Church is called to be a church of mercy. It is not a club of good friends. If it is, even it is good to be good friends, but it's not enough. It is a companionship of believers, a church of witnesses to the transformative encounter with Christ. We, who have encountered Christ and the tenderness of his mercy, are called to transmit to the world this new vision. And this means educating the world. Don't be afraid of this very important mission, which is the mission of your movement. Education is one of the great contributions of Father Giussani. It means to lead out, to draw forth a question. Giussani wanted to train the mind to think critically, not simply to be told what to do and what the right answers are, but to train the mind to ask the right questions. One cannot give a response if the question is never asked. If the right question is never asked, then typically the answer to the questions and the problems of life are transformed into an ideology. And this is the danger we live in today, in our country, and even in our church. Into a patrimony of ideas without roots. This is the antithesis of Christian church. What then is the educational contribution that Giussani offers to the church? It is nicely summarized in his biography. And education is true if it succeeds in raising up people who can prove themselves in the world, able on their own to stand before the commitments and difficulties they will meet in society. Education must tend to create people capable of affirming themselves within their environment, capable of getting involved with it, and capable of having an influence upon it. It was not enough to give good example, he continued, for the isolated Christian either ends up making an orderly retreat because he feels his own smallness in front of the widespread evil and general carelessness, or at times goes by. He begins to absorb the poison of the environment almost without even knowing it. You know, this is a quotation I took from the very interesting book of The Life of Giussani. You know, all of you have read that book, of course. Is that not true? It's a big one, huh? It's a big one, but a good one. You know, don't waste your time in reading books which are not interesting. You know, I think it's very important that, you know, the books you read, you know, we don't have time to read books. So when you read a book, it's like an investment. It's like money, you know. You don't waste your money for nothing. Eh? Don't waste books for nothing. So choose the good one. That's a good one. Father Caron, shortly before his resignation, and Davide Prosperi, and I greet him. By the way, where is Davide? Again, at the bottom. Where are you? Ah, yes. Greetings. You all know Davide, or you? Huh? You know him better than myself. And Davide Prosperi have invited members of the movement to accept responsibility for the charism of communion and liberation. Many of you encountered the movement in Italy and knew Don Giussani, but now you find yourselves having to raise your families in this environment, in this change and changing culture. Others encounter the movement here. What is the newness it brought to your life? What does Giussani's educational proposal offer here and now? That's my question. Huh? The method of Don Giussani, it seems to me, helps us to get to the root of the problems and questions facing the church in the United States. The question of faith. It is a method which helps us to see and embrace reality and which corresponds to our desire, to our urge for the truth, which ultimately is an encounter with the person of Christ. The truth is not an idea, it's a person we have to follow. And we have to take the risk. It's a risky business to follow Christ, and you will find the truth. It is a charism, it is your charism. And this charism, my friends, must be offered as a free gift to this church. Thank you.